Hey everybody, T-Man again, bringing you guys another video, and this video will be doing a video I've been wanting to do for months now, and I'm doing it now. And that is, I want to break down the hype during and after the fight of the century between Manny Pacquiao and Floyd Money Mayweather, giving my 2 cents on everything leading up to the fight. What did I think of the fight? The pricing of the pay-per-view? Everything. Okay? I have a lot to say about this. And some of you so-called boxing fans, I might piss some of you guys off, okay? First of all, I am an original boxing fan, okay? I grew up in the 90s with Mike Tyson, Lennox Lewis, the heavyweight, the golden age, the final age of the heavyweight division of boxing. Okay, back when knockouts used to happen in the heavyweight division, not when every single main event was always a decision. It didn't happen back then, okay guys? So I do like the sport of boxing. I evolved into MMA because right now MMA is what boxing used to be. It's where the fights happen, and not to mention you get your money's worth with MMA, okay? I want to start off by saying that. So I'm not a boxing hater whatsoever. I just simply evolved like human beings tend to do. They fucking evolve, okay? So first of all, I want to say that MMA is where the fights happen. Not to mention, when you go for boxing, when you pay for a boxing pay-per-view, you're paying for one fight, okay? You're paying for a main event. When you order an MMA card, yeah, you're getting a good main event most of the time, but you're also getting a good card. You're getting main roster, main talent, main fighters that you know that will deliver, and you won't be disappointed when you order a pay-per-view. You're going to get a consistent good card. So anyways, I'm going to talk about this Floyd Mayweather and Manny Pacquiao. First of all, people right away when people were calling this the fight of the century, when the fight was first booked, I was scratching my head. I'm like, why is this the fight of the century? Like, I mean, if this fight happened 6 years ago, it very well, yeah, it would be the fight of the century, because Manny Pacquiao was on fire about 6 years ago. So was Floyd Mayweather. That was the fight that needed to happen. Okay, it needed to happen. But when it didn't need to happen anymore was when Manny Pacquiao lost 2 fights recently. He lost 2 fights. As people remember that, yeah, he won a couple of recent ones over some guys, some whatever, but he lost the decision to Timothy Bradley, and he got knocked out by Juan Marquez. But no, first of all, that's one thing I'm going to talk about real briefly, the Juan Marquez fight. First of all, whoever told Manny Pacquiao to take that 4th fight with Juan Marquez is fucking stupid. Manny Pacquiao won 3 fights over Juan Marquez. Whoever told him he needed to fight him a 4th time was fucking stupid. Obviously, Marquez is going to go for broke, and he's just going to go for the knockout, because in boxing, you either go for the knockout or you go for a decision. Juan Marquez wasn't going down that route again. He was going to go for the knockout from round 1, and eventually in the fight, he got it. He got the knockout and knocked him out. So he lost 2 fights, and it was quite clear that Manny Pacquiao is not the same fighter anymore. And not to mention, people wanted to see Manny Pacquiao and Floyd Mayweather because they have the 2 best records, and they were the 2 best fighters at the time. But stylistically, that match was never going to be that good, because Floyd Mayweather, and here's something I want to talk about with Floyd Mayweather, is Floyd Mayweather is a genius. I'm not a Floyd Mayweather hater. The man is a genius because he knows he has a very boring boxing style. He is a counterpuncher, he is a runner, he's a blocker, he's a technician. Beautiful techniques, beautiful whatever, but technique is not beautiful to watch. And I will even relate it to MMA. Okay, I'm a big MMA fan, but a perfect style that's not necessarily entertaining to watch, I would say, is Mighty Mouse Johnson, the flyweight champion. Okay, Demetrius Johnson. That guy is a technician. Beautiful. And the only difference between him and Floyd Mayweather is Demetrius Johnson actually finishes fights. But he is so his technique is so sound and he's so crisp. Sometimes technique and all that is not the most entertaining thing to watch, and that's kind of what it is with Demetrius Johnson. He's not the most entertaining guy to watch. Sometimes his fights could be very well boring, and people actually walk out of his main event fights in the UFC. Floyd Mayweather is kind of the same thing in my opinion. He is very boring to watch, never finishes anybody, and here's one thing that really pisses me off about boxing fans. They keep they're like, oh yeah, Floyd Mayweather, there's a fight going on, yeah, Floyd Mayweather, yeah, there's a fight going on, yeah. And then they tune in, and then they get so disappointed on the outcome of the fight. Oh, that fight was boring, that fight wasn't as good as it turned out. I mean, the only decent Mayweather fight in recent memory was that Madonna fight. Because the first fight he gave him a run for his money, and the second time not so much. But yeah, I mean he's not an entertaining fighter, but that's one thing I like about him. He knows he's not that good, but no one promotes a fight like Mayweather. Nobody promotes a fight like Floyd Money Mayweather. Nobody does. So people still pay for his fights, watch his fights. He's the most watched boxer in today's history, and he is absolutely boring. And here's something I want to talk about with fans, and that maybe not necessarily you guys are watching my videos because I got some intelligent viewers, but if you do disagree with me, then fuck you and just hear me out. Here's what I have to say, is boxing has kind of became retro. Nobody really, I mean, there's some people, some old school people maybe, that really do enjoy today's boxing. And good for you. If you really like the techniques in boxing, I'm not going to bash you guys, okay? Good for you. If this is what you really like and whatever, then good for you. But boxing has become retro. It's the cool thing to do because it's old school. And all you gangsters out there, yeah, boxing is old school. You guys are just saying that because it's become retro. It's the cool thing to do. Even though if you really look at yourselves and really look at what you're watching on TV, you want to get a revolver and blow your fucking brains out because it is fucking boring as shit. And I'm a boxing fan. I really am. Okay? And then the price. Oh my God. They charged $100. And it was smart. Good for boxing. I don't blame. If there's people out there, and it was probably the most watched boxing pay-per-view in probably about 20 years, okay? They charge $100, and if they could get away with it, good for them. Good for them, because let me tell you something. That fight right there was the celebration, and it was the last hurrah for boxing. Because I'll tell you this, nobody's ever going to pay $100 for another boxing fight again. That was the last fight boxing needed. Okay? That was the last fight that boxing had. There is no more big boxing fights. And Floyd Mayweather is going to fight again, and people are still going to pay money to see him because they're hoping that one day someone's going to knock him on his ass. And it might happen one day, but not anytime soon. And people are still going to pay all that money. It's done. There's no other fights. Floyd Mayweather picks his fights. Nobody is the best fighter in the world in boxing. There's ducking and dodging. It's not like with the UFC. There's one company. It's not many promoters, many whatever. There's one guy, Dana White and the Fertittas. This is who you fight, and the end. I mean, sometimes you could duck and dodge a little bit in MMA. You could avoid fights for a little while, but it's nothing like boxing. Nothing. That is it. Boxing is now dead. And let me tell you something about the fight. Of course it sucked. And I told everybody. I'm sure I even tweeted about it. I told everybody that this fight between Mayweather and Pacquiao was going to be boring. And that Mayweather was going to clearly win. Pacquiao was past his prime. This thing's not even going to be entertaining. It's just going to be Mayweather picking shots, holding, hugging, dodging, and using his technique, and he's going to outbox Manny Pacquiao. And that's what happened. It was boring. I mean, whatever. You know, fuck you, boxing. I mean, but good for you. You guys got one last payday. And please, guys, if you want to watch real fights, go to MMA. Or don't call yourself a fight fan, okay? Oh, I don't like the ground game. You know what? Pay attention to what's going on. I mean, if you really start watching the UFC and learning what's happening on the ground, it'll become entertaining to you. I want to know who the best fighter in the world is, okay? When I watch fighting, I want to know who's the best fighter in the world. When I'm watching boxing, I don't know who the best fighter in the world is. And I'm going to say another thing that might piss some boxing fans off, but if they really look in the mirror and really look at it, they'll know it's true. I find it very funny that people paid $100 to see two guys hug each other, box or whatever, call it a fight, knowing that a woman in the UFC, the baddest woman on the planet, Ronda Rousey, could probably beat them both. And I mean, if it's a fight, just a fight, saying, here you go, fight, Ronda Rousey would beat them both. I don't even go as far as say she would probably beat them both at the same time. If it was a fight, you know, style and style, go do your thing, no holds barred, whatever, or even rules or whatever, Ronda Rousey would win. The only way Ronda Rousey wouldn't win against Floyd Mayweather is if it was a boxing fight. If it was just boxing with your hands, just use your hands, that's it, Floyd Mayweather would win. But if it's a fight, and a fight, when someone fights each other, they're not restricted to just using your hands. In a fight, Ronda Rousey beats Floyd Mayweather. The end. Fuck everyone who disagrees with me. That is fact. That is fact. Like it or not, that is fact. So, you know, if you want, so stop calling yourself a fight fan if you don't like the UFC. That's where the fights are right now, okay? And, I mean, I hope one day boxing gets back to what it was, but it's not. They're all about money. And they got their one last payday, so they're going to be riding high off of that for a while. But I promise you one thing, no one's going to pay $100 for a boxing fight again. And people continue to pay $80, $70, whatever typical boxing pay-per-views are these days. They'll watch Mayweather fight, and then they're going to complain afterwards. Shouldn't watch this fight. They're not fights. They're not fights. Now, if you're a fan of his technique, and if you're okay with never watching a knockout with a Mayweather fight, then by all means, watch it. But anyways, that's all I have to say about that. I needed to chime in on the so-called fight of the century. I will be doing another MMA video soon about the big card coming up between John Jones, canceled, Daniel Cormier versus Anthony Rumble Johnson, Chris Weidman, Vitor Belfort. That's right, two big title matches that could easily main event their own pay-per-views on the same pay-per-view card coming up in a couple weeks. Cannot wait for that card. I will break down that card to you very soon. So until then, see you for the next video, guys.